This is a story that, honestly, is just heartbreaking. It's about a family's love, a whole community's hope, but it's also about a tragedy that uncovered a really chilling failure in the system. Today, we're going to talk about the disappearance and murder of Alice Gross.
Just imagine hearing those words. That was the desperate, heartbreaking plea from Alice's mom just weeks after her daughter disappeared. You can just feel the pain in that message, right? That raw hope. And that's really where this whole story begins.
So first up, a girl goes missing. We need to understand who Alice was and how a completely normal Thursday afternoon just spiraled into every parent's worst nightmare.
So, who was Alice Gross? Well, she was this really vibrant 14-year-old girl, born on Valentine's Day of all days. And from everything we know, she was just incredibly creative. I mean, she loved art, design, music. She played the piano and violin and was even writing her own songs. Now, it's also true she was dealing with some tough stuff, like anorexia and depression. But the really important thing to know is that she wasn't alone in it. Her family was right there with her, working to get her the help she needed.
Okay, so picture it. August 28th, 2014. A pretty normal day. Alice heads out for a walk by the river, something she did all the time. She tells her family, "I'll be back by 6." And she was the kind of kid who was always on time so they weren't worried. But then, 6 o'clock comes and goes. Then 7. They try her phone, and it just stops ringing. And right then, her parents they knew. They had that gut feeling that something was terribly, terribly wrong.
And that's when the city started to search. What happened next was actually one of the biggest search efforts London had seen in years. It felt like the whole city came together to find her.
So police started digging into CCTV footage to retrace her steps. Okay, so at 3 p.m., she leaves her house. Around 4, she's seen walking along the Grand Union Canal. And then, at 4:26 p.m., that's the last time anyone saw her. She was on a bridge, heading back towards home. And after that, nothing. The trail just went completely cold.
And while the police were doing their thing, the community just mobilized. You couldn't go online without seeing the hashtag #FindAlice. And in the real world, there was this powerful symbol, yellow ribbons. They were everywhere, tied to trees, gates, fences, all over town. It was this constant visual reminder that this girl was missing and everyone was desperately hoping to find her.
And the scale of the official search? It was massive. We're talking 600 officers. Think about that. That's not just local police. They brought in people from 8 different forces. To put it in perspective, this was the largest police search deployment in London since the 7/7 bombings back in 2005. That's how seriously they were taking this.
Then, on September 4th, they got a breakthrough, or what seemed like one at the time. After almost a week of searching, they found her backpack. It was just sitting on a footpath by the River Brent, and inside were her shoes. This was a huge deal. It totally narrowed the search area, but it also changed everything. This wasn't just a missing persons case anymore. It was starting to feel much, much darker.
Which brings us to this next part, a sinister shadow. Because once they found that backpack, the investigation got laser focused. Detectives started looking closer and they found someone lurking in the background.
So they go back to that last bit of CCTV footage, the one from the bridge, and they're looking at it again and again, and they spot something they missed the first time. Just a few minutes behind Alice, there's a man on a bike. He's going the same way. He had to have passed her. And suddenly, the whole investigation boiled down to one question. Who was this guy?
So they start tracking this cyclist on other cameras trying to see where he went. And this is where things get really suspicious. He took 45 minutes to cover a distance that should have taken, like, a few minutes at most. 45 minutes. You have to ask, what on earth happened in that missing time? Well, they eventually identified the man on the bike. His name was Arnis Zolkans, a 41-year-old builder from Latvia. But here's the crazy twist. His partner had also reported him missing right after Alice disappeared. So now, the #1 suspect in this case had vanished too. And when the police started digging into his past, oh man, it was way worse than they could have imagined. It turns out, Arnis Zolkans was a convicted murderer. He'd beaten and stabbed his own wife to death back in Latvia. But wait, it gets even more chilling. In 2009, he was accused of sexually assaulting another 14-year-old girl really close to the same canal. And the worst part? Because of some major gaps in the system back then, UK police had no idea about any of this. His violent history was a complete blank to them.
And this is the part of the story we all dread, a tragic discovery. After weeks of searching, all that desperate hope, it came to a devastating end.
It was September 30th, 5 weeks after Alice vanished. The police called a press conference, and Commander Greg McNulty stood up and said the words that an entire city had been dreading to hear. A body had been found in the River Brent. And the very next day, their worst fears were confirmed. It was Alice.
The details that came out next, they're just horrific. The cause of death was asphyxiation, and her killer had gone to incredible, awful lengths to hide what he'd done. Her body was found weighed down with bricks and logs, wrapped up, just unthinkable.
So, the search for Alice was over. But the fight for justice and for her legacy was really just beginning. Her family was absolutely determined that her death would not be in vain.
And the forensic evidence linking Zulkins to the crime? It was just overwhelming. There was no doubt. First, they found his DNA on a cigarette butt right near the crime scene. Then, they found his DNA on her shoes, the ones from the backpack. And the final nail in the coffin? Police found the back of Alice's iPhone buried under the patio at his house. It was him. And then just 4 days after they found Alice, the search for Zulkins came to an end too. He was found in a park, and he had taken his own life. The police made it clear, if they had found him alive, the evidence was so strong he would have been charged with her murder, no question.
But this story, it doesn't just end with tragedy. Her family, they fought like hell for change. Because Alice's case threw a huge spotlight on these dangerous gaps in the system that let a known murderer just slip through the cracks. And because of their fight, the UK completely overhauled how criminal records are shared across borders. It's often called Alice's Law, and it basically closed the loophole that lets someone like Zulkins go completely undetected.
So, when you look at the whole picture, yes, it's a story of an unimaginable loss, but it's also about a community that came together and a family's incredible strength. Alice Gross was this talented, vibrant young girl whose life was just stolen from her. And while her story is a tragedy, her legacy, that's something different. It's about art, it's about music, and it's about making a real change so that something like this is less likely to happen again. That's what endures.